Welcome to the Garden State Carry Podcast. Whether you're in the field, on patrol, or just leveling up your mind state, today's episode features SafetyManCo, a former New Jersey law enforcement officer, de-escalation specialist, and firearms trainer with real life experience. Let's get into it.
Hey, thanks for inviting me onto your podcast. My name's Corey. I go by Safety Man, like you alluded to. That's my trade name, and it stands for everything that I teach is safety in all aspects and all realms.
Where are you from?
Born and raised in South Jersey, graduated from RV Rancocas Valley High School, the same one as Hall of Famer Franco Harris, back around 1988, without trying to give away my age, and I still stay in South Jersey.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'll be turning 55 in about a month or so. Most people don't believe me when I say that. It's just because I shaved my head. If the grays were there, you would know.
So what do you do, sir? Tell us about yourself.
So I'm a retired police officer, as you alluded to. I did 27 years in law enforcement. Just before that, I did a couple years as a private security officer, one at Six Flags Great Adventure. I did a summer there, which was a lot of fun. Then I worked down in Wildwood on the boardwalk as a summer cop or class 2 special. At that time was my first time actually carrying a gun on duty, and I was only 20 years old. We had a 6-week training academy, did that for one summer. And then between that summer and the next summer, the Cape May County Prosecutor's Office Narcotics Task Force picked me up. So I got to experience undercover narcotics investigations. I actually was able to go buy drugs. And then I did another summer in Wildwood. And after that summer, I got hired full-time with the Mount Laurel Police Department, where I did 25 years.
Could you tell us why you do what you do?
Two good influences in my life, personal. My uncle retired both from the Navy and from the Philadelphia Police Department. He started in 1961 and retired in 1991 from the Philadelphia Police Department. So I got to hear, the good stories there, how he was enforcing the law and helping people. And then my cousin, former Marine and retired New Jersey State Trooper, was kind of like a mentor and an older brother to me. And I got to hear again and see the good that he got to do, the fun, the camaraderie in the law enforcement profession. And that seemed like it was something that I wanted to do. So I definitely tried it. I seemed to enjoy it, seemed to be pretty good at it, and stuck with it as a career.
What is your ethnicity?
A black male. A black male. I don't like all the African American or colored or brown or anything. I'm a black male. And that has not had any negative effects that I'm aware of in my personal life, in my professional life, or my private life. Never had or experienced anything other than people being professional and respectful to me, both as an officer in uniform, other than criminals who would be disrespectful to anybody. But, the general public was happy to see a person in blue show up. That's all they cared about when they needed help.
What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
The best piece of advice I ever received is to make sure that whatever you're doing, whatever I'm doing, is just right, the right thing, no matter who's watching. I'm a man of faith. I gave my life to Christ over a decade ago. So I know that the Holy Spirit, God, got into my heart really early. My parents made sure that I went to church every Sunday as long as I can remember. So I know that message came into me. So, that advice maybe would be more than just one sentence or one phrase, just more of a lifestyle or a way of life is, everything we have to do has to be uppercase R righteous, that I can look at myself in the mirror and be proud of the actions I took or did not take. The worst piece of advice I don't think that somebody actually ever told me, but it was just a way of watching other people govern themselves in my career field, which was not, they can't make us do that. Don't do that. They can't make you do that. Don't volunteer for that. That's ridiculous. I ran my career the exact opposite. I volunteered for things, even if it wasn't something that I really wanted to do, as long as it was safe, legal, and effective. And I could look at myself in the mirror. If the brass wanted me to go to, here's an example, a child passenger safety seat technician, which is a week-long class basically to learn how to properly install car seats from infants up until you're old enough to not be in a car seat. You say that you're volunteering to go to that. Some of your tough guy cops might be like, that's a silly school. Why are you wasting your time on that? Well, just think about it. You're actually potentially saving lives, because just about every car seat that we checked was installed improperly. And I don't know about every listener, but most people I run into want to make sure that their child is the most important thing in their life and that they're safe. So that school opened my eyes up to the more than just stopping cars and catching bad guys. It showed me that putting this blue suit on meant that I'm a member of the community and I'm helping people from the minute they're born until, heaven forbid, when God calls them home. And I've been in all those situations.
Do you have a passion for firearms?
I do have I'm very interested in firearms. I consider myself pretty well schooled in firearms. That was one of the earlier schools that I went to as a law enforcement officer, was firearm instructor school, and then submachine gun instructor school, and then rifle instructor school, shotgun instructor school, low light instructor school. I got exposed to a lot of experts and could pick and choose the techniques and tactics that would work and that didn't work. Some were for show, as I'm sure, in your profession, you see the same range theatrics that I see. And then some actually have a tactical reason and a legal reason behind it. So my passion for firearms is to make sure that it's an equalizer when there's a victim who cannot defend him or herself, that is about to or is being assaulted, that they have the knowledge, skills, and ability, the competence and the confidence to defend themselves, whether it be with a firearm, a taser, some self-defense move that I may have taught them, or any other object, or just their de-escalation and getting off the X and not being in an unsafe location. But specifically about firearms, they're legal for people to own, they're legal for people to carry. So I want to make sure, for several reasons, that if I come across a client that is, thinking about or has a firearm, that they are, and you've heard me say this a lot, and I'll keep saying it, safe, legal, and effective in their use of that firearm.
How often do you think somebody should hit the range?
Until they hit the target every time, you haven't gone enough, right? I think they should, go to the range several times a year, at least 6 times a year, maybe every other month. Firearm skills are perishable, but it's more than just this CCARE or this qualification course that the Attorney General has private citizens do. It's more than just going there, shooting those 50 rounds, calling it a day, and leaving. I train my clients before, during, and after that qualification session to handle a bunch of other things. We're not always standing with our feet shoulder width apart, toes, knees, hips, and shoulders square to your threat in a ready stance, knowing everything that's going to happen and that you're going to fire 3 rounds in 10 seconds. That's not how gunfights, that's not how sudden, unexpected encounters happen. So I train my clients to be able to do the unexpected and be prepared for the unexpected. Maybe you only have to shoot with one hand because one is injured, or using the other hand, heaven forbid, to hold your child or guard your spouse or manipulate a flashlight or a door, or it's injured. So I train them that way. I see clients who have come to me to get recertified for their permit to carry, and I wasn't their initial instructor, and I watched them. They're not holding the gun properly. They're not standing properly. They're not using the trigger properly. When their gun is empty, they don't notice that it's empty until they go to fire again, and they realize that it's just going squish, squish. And then when their gun has a malfunction, they don't even know how to clear the malfunction. And they call themselves safe, legal, and effective. So,
Insane.
Yeah, it is insane, and it's sad because I people yell at me on the internet. People, when they see my videos that they post on it, say, why are you making them shoot with one hand? The Attorney General doesn't make them do that. The Attorney General says that you should be safe, legal, and effective with the firearm, and that's my job as a qualifier to ensure that. They didn't say what that entails. The course is just one part of it. If you read the whole statute, it says I have to make sure they demonstrate a clear understanding of the safe operation and handling of the handgun or handguns they intend to carry. And for me, that is all those things that I just talked about and more.
Have you ever had to personally use your handgun for self-defense?
I've never had to shoot a human being with my handgun on or off duty. I unfortunately had to put some deer out of their misery that were hit by cars while I was working. There were several incidents, one on SWAT and one when I was in regular patrol, where I had my handgun pointed at somebody and was very close to pulling the trigger on somebody. And I just think that the fact that they looked at me, saw the intensity in my face, and more so looked beyond me and saw that there is another team of officers, and that any choice that they would make to use deadly force or be aggressive would have been met with overwhelming force. So we had a good plan. It wasn't my plan. I wasn't in charge. I was just a cog in the wheel at that point. But that was the closest I ever came. I could almost feel the hammer starting to come back on the one handgun. I was really close to squeezing that trigger because the guy's hand went out of my field of vision and started to come back. And if there was anything in that hand, I probably would have shot him. And thank God he came back with an empty hand. And then when they interviewed him later, and he did have a rifle next to him, and he thought about it, but then he changed his mind.
As a retired law officer,
I do not have a security company of my own. I'm a security consultant. I'd like to really call myself a safety consultant. So anything that your house of worship, your school, your daycare, your office, any place where there's those team members, those clients need to not only be safe, but they need to feel safe. So that's what I do with my security consulting agency, SafetyMan Consulting. There is a private security company that I'm the South Jersey supervisor for. And in that job, I basically help train, manage, staff, and monitor the security officers that we have at different accounts, some at cannabis dispensaries, some at religious schools, and so forth. I believe me as a kind of biased, right? I'm a retired police officer and I do work in the security field. And I have some that work for me that are retired police officers. I think people have to remember when we hire a police officer, we hire a doctor, we hire a person who's a server at a restaurant, we draw from the same hiring pool, the human race, right? Human beings. And as professional as police officers are expected to be, we are still human. We still have emotions. We still sometimes have a bad night of sleep or have a spat with a loved one or running late or something else is going on. And my job, I feel, when I'm recommending someone to be hired, whether they're a retired police officer or not, is integrity is the number one thing I look for is integrity. And if you make it through 25 years as a law enforcement officer and retire in good standing, you probably should have good integrity because you would have been fired before that if you were a liar, if you were, cheating or doing things that were just, undesirable. So I look for that integrity. I can train anybody how to shoot. I've been doing it for years. I can train anybody defensive tactics. I can train anybody the best way to go check the interior and exterior of a premises for signs of forced entry or de-escalation for an irate client. I can train anybody to do that. I can't train somebody to have integrity or to be honest and so forth. So those are the most important things I look for.
what are your thoughts on a new cutoff age for carrying a firearm in America?
I'm not familiar if there has been one. I'm not really big into hard numbers. I believe that if we had private citizens qualify every year and the instructors had to put their name on those forms, and once they can no longer qualify, then we should handle it on an individual basis. You can no longer qualify, you can no longer carry a gun. There's no cutoff age for driving a motor vehicle, and I know that's a privilege and not a right, but a private citizen or a medical doctor can send a letter to Motor Vehicle Commission in New Jersey and recommend that this person can no longer safely operate a motor vehicle, and they can take their license. And I believe it should be the same way for firearms, especially carrying outside your home. Inside your home is a little bit different. You know, we're looking at a lot of constitutional violations to go inside someone's private home and remove their shotgun that they have for self-defense. But running around Wawa, Walmart, or in the street, if you can't drive a car anymore, you probably shouldn't be able to carry a gun.
Yeah, because I've been in the range a couple of times qualifying, and I've had, no disrespect, older people, gentlemen next to me, and they're shooting at the floor, at the ceiling. They don't know what's going on, and it's very scary to, God forbid, one of those people be your backup on the field. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. I was training an agency a couple of years ago, and one of the administrators who was not on the firing line, I'm running the firing line the way I've always run it, and all of a sudden I hear a gunshot. I knew it wasn't any of the people that I was training because I could see them all. And one of the administrators was messing with their holster and shot around into the ground about six feet behind me. I was very angry. However, I'm also a de-escalation instructor, and these people are paying me good money to come out and train their team 4 times a year. So I handled the situation professionally, took the gun, gave it to another administrator, checked him for injuries. He was not injured, sent him outside with someone who's an EMT to check his vitals and everything, just to make sure that the stress of having that unintentional discharge go off and almost shooting himself or other people wasn't going to have an adverse effect on his heart rate, blood pressure, or anything like that. So yeah, you're right. Continual training, going to your previous question, continual training, because they're perishable. I know I'm 55. There's things that I can't do now that I could do when I was 25. I just can't do certain things, so I have to modify my training. I have to modify the force options that I'm going to carry with me in my EDC, my everyday carry, so I can protect myself, my family, and any innocent third person that I want to protect. So to your point, continuous training is what is going to help mitigate a lot of those problems. Yeah, there are definitely a lot of roadblocks in the algorithm. TikTok, for one, I post videos of me and my puppies out back playing, or videos of me smoking a giant pork shoulder. I'll get 1,000 views on it. I post videos on TikTok of me training a young lady who's a single mom in self-defense with a firearm, and I'll get 20, 30 views on it. So definitely the fact that there's a gun, the algorithms, or maybe it's an actual person, seems like they're suppressing those videos because it's produced the same way. I'm not using any music that I'm not allowed to use. I'm on the exact same platform, and you'll get one video with 1,000 views and a video with 8 views. So yeah, you're right. There are algorithms, but I'm still out there pushing it. I try to go around the algorithms and give messages. I'll try to use cartoons. I try to use different words from gun to firearm and just have the picture of it to try to go around it, to get the message out there that since it's legal, you need to be confident and competent in your ability to defend yourself and others. Laziness would be my vice. Anytime I ever received discipline as a police officer would be because I said, oh, I'll just get this done later. I'll get this done later. I'll get this done tomorrow. And then I wind up taking that day off. And then I'm rushing. And we all know how that affects your finished product when you're rushing to get it done, as opposed to taking your time, then letting it sit, then reviewing it. And 90% of the time it was paperwork, right? Me reviewing the paperwork submitted by my officers, or me having to actually, do an investigation and submit that. I would push myself and wait until almost the last minute. So that still today would be my biggest vice. It's like, I'll get that done later.
Any advice on family work-life balance?
Family work-life balance is find hobbies that we all enjoy, right? And sometimes you might have to bite the bullet. There's like my wife likes to go hiking. I have my left knee right now isn't in the best shape. I need to maybe get it looked at. So that's not fun for me. But if I can compromise and we can go for a walk together, down a main street of some beautiful town, and then stop and have lunch, stop and have a cup of coffee over here. So I'm giving my knee a chance to rest, but we're outside, we're in the environment, we're walking, we're getting our steps in, we're enjoying it together. So that definitely increases our work-life balance. When my kids were younger, I coached their soccer team. Fortunately, they're close enough in age where they were on the same soccer team. And this will show you this one of the skill sets that a retired police officer brings to the table. I don't know anything about soccer. I was a coach for a soccer team and didn't know the rules. I didn't know what offsides was in soccer. I know what it is in football, American football. Didn't know what it was. We won 2 championships, right? 2 championships because my sergeant skills of getting a group of people to accomplish a single goal was good enough to be able to allow us to win those 2 championships. Now, in all due fairness, once their skill level got higher, once they got older, and now you needed to have more strategies and skills, I started to realize that, I have to tap out now. I can no longer be a coach. So in that small window, that was helpful. So that was a good work-life balance because that was a very good family event. We made mutual friends there and so forth.
I said, with your enhanced sense of situational awareness, do you see anything happening within the near future when it comes to security?
So I'll answer that question in 2 different ways. Am I worried about some sort of major attack? I know that the Department of Homeland Security did just release a statement indicating that they thwarted a terrorist attack on a tank base out in the Midwest. A person had got together a group of people was teaching them how to make IEDs, was teaching them how to shoot, and was going to do an attack and kill as many soldiers and civilians at a tank base. We saw the vehicle attack down in New Orleans on New Year's Day. We saw somebody blow up a Tesla on the same day, supposedly unrelated. Some people are just at wit's end. I don't think it's everybody. I just think the media would have you think that it's left versus right, it's blue versus red. My day to day is not like that. My day to day, I'm dealing with people, and people come in of all colors, all socioeconomic patterns. And hey, how you doing, officer? Or should I call you officer if I'm working in security? Or hey, how you doing, Mr. Jones? And don't see any problems with that. So I'm not really worried. I don't want people to be paranoid. I just want people to be prepared to your level of preparation and where you feel comfortable. So no, I'm not really worried about something major happening. I think, during the election process, we're being invaded by, other countries and so forth. A lot of that's politics. Yeah, my main future endeavors are, I'll give you two. Number one is kind of what I'm doing now, right? I want to be invited to talk. I want to be invited to share my views, my experience, my opinions, my training to groups of people. I've been exposed to a lot of law enforcement, exposed to a lot of people who are in positions to help from military side, law enforcement side, the medical side, firefighters, sociologists, psychologists, different companies that I work with, teaching resiliency, de-escalation, and so forth. And I believe when I bring all that together, I have a message, and to teach people how to deal with adversity, especially when it's sudden adversity. So that'd be my future goal. My number one goal is to be a keynote speaker. And I've done it a couple of times. I was invited and flown down to Florida, all expenses paid, plus a nice paycheck to come and speak to a group of aviation security experts who are looking for a better way to de-escalate, especially when you see these videos of people acting crazy on an airplane. It's one thing when they're still in the terminal on the ground, it's much easier. But when you're in a small aluminum tube traveling 600 miles an hour, 30,000 feet, your options of what you're going to do to that person are limited. So I did come up with a pretty good plan of attack, not really attack, a good plan to handle that type of an air rage. So keynote speaking is number one. And then number two is just being able to go and train people. I just love training. I love when people fly me someplace to come and go train. I get exposed to a different part of the country or a different part of the world, learn a little bit about their culture, their way of doing things, and then modify my message to fit what they are looking to accomplish from that. So those are my future goals, that keynote speaker. And finally, I did forget to touch on the fact that I'm now recognized as a subject matter expert on use of force, and specifically police use of force. I did assist an attorney in investigating a police use of force that resulted in the death of an African-American male. And I found some things that law enforcement agency did not do well. And I put that in writing, and I gave that to the attorney. And he said it was definitely helpful to the case. So I'm really big on police reform, on making sure that law enforcement is competent and confident. Those two words you're going to hear me say a lot. I need law enforcement to be confident that if they are going to use force or they're going to enforce the law, i.e. we see these car stops with people, I want to speak to the supervisor, you can't stop me, you can't do this, I don't have to do that. I want officers to know the law, what they can and can't do, and then have the support, the confidence that if they enforce it, they'll be supported strongly by their administration. Because when you watch the videos, you see the exact opposite of that there's an impasse and they're arguing back and forth. And that makes the intensity level higher on both sides. And then when force does have to eventually be used and a custodial arrest does have to be made, it's made when everybody is at their boiling point and they lose their professionalism. So that's one of my goals as a subject matter expert in use of force, is try to get people to negotiate or gain compliance early by speaking the law, speaking the truth, and knowing it, and being able to handle objections the same way you would train a salesperson. And then when it's time to use force, make sure your force is safe, legal, and effective, and that you know that you'll be supported by the law enforcement community when you do it. Well, it's not easy. I started doing this probably back in the late 90s by, like I had mentioned earlier, volunteering for any and every school that my administration wanted to send me to. And what that did, and this is great for a younger person, I don't care what career field you're in, but certainly if you're looking to get into security or law enforcement or protection, executive protection, is because I volunteered to do the schools that the agency wanted, they then allowed me to go to the cool schools that I wanted, the SWAT school, breaching school, rifle school, explosive breaching school, weapons of mass destruction and the tactical arena school. All those different things help pad my resume. So when I send my resume off to somebody, they're like, wow, you've been exposed to a lot of things, Mr. Jones, safety man. I said, yes, I have. So that is one thing, is get as much training as you can possibly get. Even if you don't think that it applies to you, you're going to meet people, you're going to make contacts, lifelong contacts. I mean, there's contacts that I've made 30 years ago who have become chiefs of police, and because they know my integrity and they follow me on social media, they pay me to come down and train their agencies for 3, 4, 5, 6 years in a row. So it's starting now by building your credibility, your knowledge base, and your integrity, and then staying with that and continually learning and exposing yourself to more ideas, more ways of doing things. Because, I hate to use these silly expressions, but there is more than one way to, I like animals, so I'm not going to say that one. There's a couple of ways you can make a hot dog, right? A microwave and boiling water on a grill. They're all effective. One might be better than the other.
Do you consume any similar content, podcasts, any media that could help us out here?
I do. So one of New Jersey's preeminent attorneys for gun rights, Evan Nappen, he has a podcast called The Gun Lawyer. I'm also a rep for U.S. Law Shield, which is they provide legal defense for self-defense uses of force, whether it be with a firearm, a taser, or you've got into a physical fight to defend yourself or others. You pay their fee, and they give you unlimited legal protection, no caps. You pay your $40 a month, and there's no caps. If you had to do that with a regular attorney, it'd be an $8,000 retainer, and then who knows how much it would be after that is going. Your retainer is going to continue to represent you in the criminal trial, and then the potential civil trial after that. So I listen to all these. I listen to a lot of attorneys, a lot of gun attorneys talking, because they're trying the cases. They're the ones that are hearing what the prosecution or the defense, whichever side they're on, are arguing. So then they're giving us that information so I can then better give that to my clients. I'm like, this may not be the law right now, but this is the way people are viewing Second Amendment rights or use of force inside your home or use of deadly force outside your home. The law or the policy may say this, but people are starting to think that. So I do consume that type of content. There's some former Navy SEALs and some former Tier 1 operators that I know personally, or that I follow their podcasts and their YouTube channels to, again, just to better enhance what I'm doing, or see, hey, I probably should stop doing that because that girl just said, don't do that. It's unsafe, or it's no longer effective, or it's going to slow you down. This is a better way. So never stop learning.
You mentioned U.S. Law Shield. Have you ever encountered anyone personally who had to use their services? Because as of late, I have heard a lot of negative things about such companies.
So I have not met anyone personally. On their website, they do have testimonials of people who have used U.S. Law Shield. U.S. Law Shield prides themselves, before you pay your money online, you call them and ask them those questions. Ask them what you just asked me. I tell anybody listening to this podcast, if you're considering getting anyone, attorneys on retainer, USCCA, U.S. Law Shield, or any other one out there, write down the questions. Or, imagine the situation that you might be using it in, because they'll cover you as a SORA. So if you're working as a security officer and you use force on duty in uniform as a security officer, they cover you. If you use force off duty, has nothing to do with work, in plain clothes, they cover you. If anyone doubts that, call them. They're having a conference with Evan Nappen being one of the speakers, and another speaker is from a company called Force Science Institute. They are the preeminent subject matter experts when it comes to human factors and use of force and time dilation, all those different things that come into play of Why did you wind up shooting this person in the back? Or why did you shoot this person 8 times when the coroner said the first 3 bullets actually killed them? Well, they've already done all this science. They've already done all these studies. So those are the subject matter experts that you want. And U.S. Law Shield is partnering with them to put on a conference. So Ann Evan Appin is going to be there. So you have subject matter experts in science, you have subject matter experts in law, all in one room at one time, speaking to people about why it's important to have that. So if you go back into what I said before about having confidence, if I don't have confidence that if I use this force, that I'm going to have a competent attorney defend me, I might hesitate. And that hesitation might cause me to die, my loved one to die, or some innocent person to die because I didn't have the confidence. And that's why I'm very big on that. And that's why I'm hoping that people, when they listen to this podcast, look up online, because you don't even have to be a member to come to this conference. It's going to be in Princeton at the end of the month. We'll have the date and the link for it in the show notes at the bottom of this podcast. But that's the time to go and ask those questions. Are you sure that you guys are going to answer this phone on Christmas morning at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. when everybody's opening presents? And I asked them that, and they said, yes, absolutely.
Appreciate your time, brother. Any last words? Anything else you want to close with?
Yeah, I just want people to understand that I don't want people to be paranoid. I know this podcast is about self-defense and situational awareness and guns and so forth. I don't want people to be paranoid. I want people to be prepared to your level of comfort. If your day-to-day thing is you spend most of your time driving from here, 10 minutes to your office, maybe you stop at Whole Foods, you stop at Trader Joe's, and then you're back home, maybe you're not exposed to the same potential for violence as somebody who has to do other things or lives in a different area. So to your level, to what you're likely to encounter, speak with an expert, somebody who knows what they're talking about. Don't just get your information from one source. Don't just look at one YouTube video and say, oh, the SIG P320 is the gun to get, because a lot of cops are carrying SIG P320s. And we know that they're the subject of some issues right now. So pay attention, talk to more than one person, and then have somebody guide you through that process. And finally, SafetyMan.co is my website. SafetyMan, all one word, like Superman, or at SafetyManCo on all social media. I'd love for you to follow me, ask me questions, and I like more when people challenge my opinions or challenge my advice, because I've often had to go back and change something because someone effectively challenged why I was teaching, saying, or doing something. So that's what I would say. SafetyMan.co, at SafetyManCo. Be safe, stay ready, and as always, train now.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to support the movement, please visit our store at Linktree/Garden State Carry. Buy some merch, buy some accessories, represent, stay safe. Welcome to the Garden State Carry podcast. Whether you're in the field, on patrol, or just leveling up your mind state, today's episode features SafetyManCo, a former New Jersey law enforcement officer, de-escalation specialist, and firearms trainer with real life experience. Let's get into it.